Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. It's something that we all deal with on a daily basis. Some of us, sometimes it just pops up from time to time. Some of us are better dealing with this than others, but many of us don't know what's actually going on when we're dealing with it. I'm talking about stress. Yes, we know what it is, most of us. Sometimes we haven't identified it, but we know what's going on in our lives, what how crazy things are happening within our bodies. What is actually going on within our brains when we're stressed out? I can't believe it's this far into life where this is what I'm talking about. And this is stuff we should know as kids, but we don't. But that's why we have her. She is the woman behind a leading mental health company focused on novel therapeutics, including ketamine and much, much more. Revitalis is the name of the company, and the founder is Katie Walker, and she's back with us. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for being here.
Oh, good to have you back here. Um, are you chill? Are you stressed out?
You know what? I am chill, but I'm probably constantly living in a stressed environment. How's that?
Define stressed environment.
I don't know. I mean, my, who knows, right? I mean, that's the piece of it. That's what we're trying to break through and to discover, because people can live in different levels of stress, and we think that we're okay if we're thriving in a stressful environment,
Mm,
but if we're thriving in that stressful environment, those cells, are they still getting hurt because of the stress? And that's what we're trying to, it's one of our projects we're trying to unfold is, what is stress doing to our body? What's it doing to our brain? And that's something that, it's super interesting, Steve, because looking at stress, people feel stressed, but they get used to that level of stress. And then we don't know how to turn it off sometimes. Sometimes we don't sleep well because of it. Sometimes we hit a wall, or we're just, I mean, there's so many asks of us today, right? Whether that's being a parent or an employee or a family member or, a community member, whatever else. There's so many asks, and they're so unobtainable sometimes, but we're all pushing as much as we possibly can. So what we've seen is when we're pushing at these levels, if our cells are actually in a stressful environment, they're not getting the oxygen they need. They're not getting the nutrients they need. And what happens is these cells duplicate. All the cells in our body and in our brain duplicate. So when they're duplicating, like cells have a lifespan, right? They die, they regenerate, they die, they regenerate. So when they regenerate, if they're regenerating in an environment that has less oxygen, less nutrients, then they're actually regenerating and they're not nearly as healthy as they once were. So it's something that's
mm.
obtainable, tangible, like we can actually have effect on this. But how do we do it? And that's, education's a big way, but two, we need a lot more revolutions in this area as well.
Wow. I learned this year that it goes down to the cellular level. Finally figured that out. And that's big. When you said they duplicate, let's say you have a cell. Here's a cell right over here. The cell is compromised because of stress. And maybe it's beat up a little bit too, taking some hits from the stress. Does it duplicate in a compromised form, or does it duplicate in a healthy form, but now it's in an environment that doesn't support it, not enough oxygen, et cetera, et cetera?
Yep.
I
Yep.
hope that made sense.
Yeah, I like to picture it as like a grape and a raisin. So picture a healthy cell is it looks like a grape. And then over time, when these cells duplicate, eventually they start looking smaller and not nearly as more raisin-like. Our grapes start become raisins.
Mm,
But there's something, Steve, and this is super interesting, because I'm kind of in the ketamine, the psychedelic sector, and I'm seeing all this regeneration and it's beautiful, but also nutrition. So a lot of the nutrition that's out there. So hear me on this. And it's interesting with RFK coming in now too, with all these like, data points that I've never even considered. How how much vitamins are in our food today? because on the labels, we're looking at organic versus inorganic produce. And like, we want to try to get organic.
Yep.
Tell me how much vitamin C is in that orange that you're eating. It's not on there. Like we have no idea
Ooh, ooh,
how much vitamins are actually in the produce that we're eating. Zero. We have zero clue.
whoa. Tap the brakes.
RFK, call in. We need a question on this.
Did never thought about that. And I'm a label reader. But
Mhm.
you're right. I go and buy some grape tomatoes, even
Yeah.
if it's organic. Flipping the package over. Where's the nutrition panel? There ain't none. Oh my
It's
gosh.
got your MBC. It has your minimum daily values, right, on there. But of the vitamin C that we need, but the actual produce that you're intaking, it's very generic. Like nobody's measuring it, like on that. So it's horrible. But here's the thing, and this is interesting.
That makes me angry. I'm telling you, I'm the chillest person on the planet. But realizing that now, and I
It's
wish I did
so
previously,
it's so simple, and we're not doing it like at all. We're completely
and
ignorant to
and
that.
and, and why aren't we doing it? Because our
It,
our food chain is tainted.
Sure. Well, it could be, or it could be cost. I'm sure cost is a big piece to it, or it's like there's no way we can measure, how many vitamins are actually in each piece, but we have to. So here's something that's really interesting. I went down a big rabbit hole of vitamin C a long time ago, and I'm a huge vitamin C believer now.
Hmm.
So vitamin C at one time as human beings, we used to make vitamin C naturally. We don't anymore. The only vitamin C that we have that helps with their cell production is the vitamin C that we consume. So, believe it or not, our dogs, I know for dogs for a fact, I don't know about the other animals in their different families, but dogs for a fact still produce vitamin C. So, when they get stressed, what happens is vitamin C comes out and it coats that cell and it protects that cell in a stressful environment. What's happening to human beings right now is when we get stressed, we have something called cellular apoptosis. So when we get stressed, we don't have enough vitamin C in our system. Our cells do not get coated properly and they explode. That's cellular apoptosis. So as these cells are regenerating, we're losing some along the way because literally they're dying in real time. So vitamin C is, I mean, when you read about vitamin C, a lot of people are like, oh, it's water soluble. It doesn't have that much effect. You need vitamin C in your system because it stimulates up to 800 different enzymatic processes that continue for another 4 to 8 weeks after you consume it. So you have to get high quality vitamin C. And what happens is it goes in, it starts repairing tendons and ligaments, these weird pain syndromes. Like if you start looking at scurvy, everybody knows about scurvy. Like go back to scurvy. Like me personally, I feel like we're almost to scurvy again because a lot of these symptoms that people are having are very similar to scurvy symptoms. And it's because none of us believe in taking vitamin C. We're like, oh yeah, your body will get what it needs. Like just get some good
Okay.
organic produce. It's not getting it.
I could spend a week talking to you. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. Vitamin C. Back in the day, it was a thing. Take vitamin C, ward off a cold. Blah 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 blah. I did, and then I leaned off of it because it can upset your stomach a little bit. Why was my stomach upset? Because I had stress. It really wasn't the vitamin C, but the vitamin C was sort of for me the if you take too much, it's sort of like the gasoline on the fire. Um, so, how much would you recommend supplementing vitamin C? And we're not selling anything here, but is there a better quality brand that you would suggest?
So we'll break down vitamin C. So vitamin C, there's two types, right? There's like ascorbic acid and there's sodium citrate. And ascorbic acid is really the vitamin C that you need. It has more process, it works more on a cellular level. Um, you can take it orally, yes. But two things. There is a reason you get nauseated when you take it orally. But then also, if you take too much at one time, you're going to be wishing you hadn't while you're hoping to get away from the bathroom because it will, it really cleanses out your system from a motility standpoint. So vitamin C That my biggest go-to with vitamin C is IV vitamin C, and I'll tell you why. So IV vitamin C, you can take up to 1.5 grams per kilogram of vitamin C without it having any type of negative effects. So think about that. 1.5 grams of vitamin C. Okay. So if you're a
Wow.
220-pound male, you're 100 kilograms. You can take you can take 1,500 milligrams per 100 kilograms, meaning you can take around 150,000 milligrams of vitamin C over 2 hours, and not have any negative effects. And when you do that, the reason you're not having any negative effects is because it's bypassing your gut. So you don't get all the GI stuff. And then also, anytime you get something through an IV, it's 100% absorbed. It's right there. It's getting, there's something called your first pass metabolism, and it's what happens with our gut. Anything we take by mouth, we only get a certain amount of it because our liver likes to take a lot of it. But IV, it bypasses that. So when you get that IV, you're
Wow.
getting 100%. When you take it by mouth, the max you can absorb is 40%. So that's something when somebody's like, oh, I'm taking 500 milligrams of vitamin C by mouth, I should be fine. You're only getting 200 milligrams that are actually working. So that's something to consider. Gummies, I love gummies. I have gummies like throughout my house of vitamin C, but they're consistently inconsistent. So like the dosing per gummy is different. They just can't get the gummy right. And that's going to take time. But so a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll take vitamin C. If you want to take it orally, there are powders that you can actually get and you can put it in shakes and things like that. But I tell people to start out, 1,000, 2,000 milligrams at a time, and then maybe take that, 2 to 3 times a day. There's some people that will work their way up to taking 10,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C. The two big things you have to worry about with vitamin C is people who have renal insufficiency. So people who have like kidney issues. There's a theory out there, and again, there's not much. I don't know if there's any data that proves it, but there's a theory. Vitamin C stimulates red blood cell production, which stimulates calcium production, and that calcium can potentially make calcium stones, which could come back and hurt your kidneys. So that's something to look at if you have kidney issues. Vitamin C is actually good for the kidneys. But if you have kidney issues, you need to look at those balancing pieces. The other thing is if people get IV vitamin C, they can go up to 50 grams of vitamin C pretty easily. The first time I ever got it, it kicked my tail. It was a detox reaction. It gets out metals, it eliminates all kinds of stuff. And I went home and slept for like 4 hours. But so you want to start 5 grams. Anybody can do 5 grams IV, and that's fine. 5,000 milligrams IV. Like that's a really healthy, very low starting dose. The highest I've seen people get is around 100,000 milligrams, and it's a really big
Wow.
dose. They're using it a lot for pain syndromes and stuff too now.
Mm.
But if you get over 50,000 or 50 grams, which is 50,000 milligrams, they really recommend you to get a lab test called a G6PD. Because if you get high with vitamin C, it can thin your blood out. And if it thins your blood out and you're positive for that little G6PD, it can make you have bleeding disorder. You can bleed easy. So it's not the benefits actually still outweigh the risks. But we could go on for 5 months and talk about vitamin C.
My gosh. And it's so funny. We started talking about stress and then that got us into
Mhm.
the vitamin C road. Revitalist, you do that type of therapy, vitamin C IV therapy?
Yes, yes, yeah, we do vitamins. And it's funny because I came out of the hospital and I was like, all right, whatever, vitamins. Like my partner at the time wanted to do them. And I was like, there's no good evidence around that because we're so not trained that way in medicine. And the data out there is amazing. Not only is it amazing, it's actually of higher efficacy than the pharmaceutical data that's out there right now. So it's like, if people have blood pressure, they have low blood pressure issues, B12 can actually help correct that. If they have pain issues, vitamin C. If they have kidney issues, there's something called glutathione. Kidney
Mm.
issues and tissues, glutathione's beautiful, and it's naturally in our system. It's in our liver and our lungs.
And you can
But
IV
it's
that
just
too.
you can IV that. You can IV it, you can cream it, you do all the things. But IV is the best with glutathione. But it's a natural antioxidant as well. And as we get older, a lot of times the reason that we start getting wrinkles, the reason we start getting like hypertension is because we're losing that elasticity in our vessels, and that's directly related to glutathione. So yes, you can get vitamins with those as well. They're very safe to get. But you always want to check, the background of your provider, because it's great when everything's going great, but say if you have a reaction, which is very low that you would, but you still want to have the providers that know what to do if something goes wrong, not just if it goes right. And that's something I've noticed that people at certain vitamin clinics, they'll have the lowest possible certification to do it, and that's not always what you want in that environment.
So let's pivot from vitamin C back to stress. Somebody's
Yeah.
stressed out. What's actually taking place that's causing the stress? The internal part. We know it's out there. Like you said, there's so many asks of us, so much going on. But we encounter those situations. What's happening in our brain that's causing us to be stressed out?
That's psychological stress, but there's also physiological stress. And those are the two things. We need to consider both of those, guys. So with stress, like, I don't know if you've looked at COVID with a lot of these different pieces, but now there's data coming out saying that all of us may be walking around with a very low viral load of COVID. And this COVID, it's creating a level of stress on our cells. So a lot of people are having like weird lungs, weird heart, weird whatever. And psychologically, their stress levels may be low, but physiologically, their body is being attacked with certain things. So we have to consider both of those. How do we support the body? How do we support the brain? So from a psychological standpoint with stress, one thing I would say the biggest thing that I've noticed with working with people with stress when they're really starting to decompensate, but they may not recognize it yet, is when they feel like they're losing the ability to categorize and to prioritize. So a lot of times, people will be like, I've got so much stuff on my plate. I don't know where to start. And most people, when we start with the things that will be, the quickest to get done. So it gets off of our plate. And then we go more to the long-term interventions. People, a lot of times when they get so stressed, they stop. And so from a psychological standpoint, I would say for people, and this breaks it down pretty simple, I think, is if they feel like their sympathetic nervous system's gotten hit. So when you think about your sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, freeze, I think of those three guys are like a triangle. They're completely opposite of each other. But if you feel like you're fighting with people all the time, if you feel like you're avoiding situations all the time, or you just don't want to do anything all the time, you're living under an umbrella of psychological stress. And you need to do something about that, because our brain will duplicate what it knows, just like muscle memory. And if we're fighting all the time, that becomes redundant. Avoiding all the time, that becomes redundant. Freezing all the time or isolating, that becomes redundant. And the example I like to use to keep people in mind, everybody loves the term anger. And I'll tell you the reason anger, I guess anger is just so much easier to bond with, but all the emotions are exactly the same way as anger. So what do we tell people when they get angry? Don't email when you're angry. Take a breath. Think about it. Don't send a text when you're angry. Like we always count to 10. Count to 10 before you do something with anger, right? All the emotions are exactly the same way. And every time you act on them, they get easier because you're training your brain to do that. And you're unconsciously training it, but you're training it to do it. So my big thing with people, especially with stress, especially being around the holidays, right? There's family members, there's friends, there's people in the holiday season that you'd probably prefer not to be here or be around. And two, there's loss, right? I mean, people, we lose people over the year, and now you're coming into the holiday, and your framework might look different. A big thing with that, I tell people is like have some self-reflection, give yourself a little bit of space. If you're ill-tempered, short-tempered, crying, whatever, like so be it. but be aware of that's what's going on, but give yourself space, but you're not that person. Like, and don't become that person. So a lot of people, it's okay to be sad at the holidays. It's okay to be angry at the holidays, but don't make it to where you become angry with every holiday or sad with every holiday. So, because what people happens is a lot of people become that. They become a depressed person or an angry person. It's not the way it should be viewed. It should be, I'm a person with anger issues. I'm a person with depression symptoms. So the more that we can kind of educate ourselves on that, the more that we can feel like we're kind of in control and more empowered, even though we may be struggling.
So quick questions. I don't want to run out of time, but I want to hammer these out really fast based on exactly what you said. Are you saying that when you have an emotion you're dealing with, all of them should be dealt with the same way as you would with anger? Take a deep breath, which is scientifically proven. It's like I call it the reset button, or take, multiple breaths. Um, let's say you're sad or something triggers you
Mhm.
and you're like, and it's not anger, but you should tap the brakes and take that breath, no matter what it is. Is that
That's
correct?
right. Yep.
Okay.
Anytime we have emotional reaction, that's emotions leading us. It's a protective mechanism for some reason. And
Sure.
we should just view it as that, like, oh, wonder why I'm getting emotional here, and it's like admin, be your own administrator. Don't get on the same level as your brain. Don't let your brain lead you, because once it does, it's really hard to grasp back that control. But if we can learn to respect it instead of looking at it like it's ill, then that's how we can learn to grow psychologically over life, because that's what life's about. For some reason, and I was thinking about this yesterday, we're all constantly trying to find stability. And that doesn't exist in this world. The only thing that's stable is change. And so it's like the more that we like finally get settled and something changes, finally get settled and something changes. It's like if we
Yep.
can learn to accept change for what it is, then we can kind of flow with that speed a little bit better.
I've changed my mindset over the last, say, 3 or 4 years when it comes to that. And things used to, throw me off kilter. Like, oh, I can't believe that happened. It could be the littlest thing. Um, Now nothing surprises me. And I don't, I don't, it's not a cop out, but it's just like nothing surprises me. Final question here. I've debated this with friends of all different levels. Anger.
Mm.
Does anger really exist, or is anger really another or other emotions?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. No, I think anger is a form of anxiety. And
Whoa,
I
never
think
heard
rage is
that. Never heard that.
I think Yep, yep. I think rage is a form of anxiety. Because think about this with anxiety, right? With anxiety, we're trying to control what we have no control of. That's why we're trying to overthink and overthink and overthink. And think about anger. When someone gets angry, they're trying to control the situation that they have no control of. Same with rage. And it feels good. I mean, that's my go-to is rage. I'm much better now. People don't believe me actually when I'm like, oh yeah, I used to be like, I'm really patient now. But no, yeah, anger is an absolute emotion. Rage is an absolute emotion, and they're
Wow.
powerful protective measures. But me personally, I think they're just a severe form of anxiety. It's a
Interesting.
coping mechanism.
I've never
Take
heard
that
that
back
said.
to your next debate.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I can promise you that. Never heard that. I've never heard that before, but it does make a lot of sense when you think about it. And yes, you're angry in a situation. Why? Because it's something you can't control, which i.e. turns into or is anxiety. Whoa. Uh, you are fascinating. I could hang with you for weeks and talking about all this stuff. It's so, and right, it goes back to the beginning. Vitamin C, like, again, like decades ago, vitamin C, and then it kind of went away. But learning today, so important, so impactful. Best way to find you now. I know that you're located in, you have multiple locations. I'm trying to remember.
I do. Yeah. I'm primarily in Knoxville, but yeah, we have two locations in Tennessee, and then we have one in Tampa, Florida. Mhm.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. And aside from the IV drips and all of that, you can do some of this work virtually to support people.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can do work across the entire country. Like we have coaches, so we have mental health coaches We actually have our licensing in Colorado to where we can provide virtual help with psychedelic therapies in Colorado as well. So yeah, anybody across the country can reach out to us.
How do we do that?
They can find us at revitalist.com. So it's revitalist.com, or they can call us 833-633-1576. And then too, we have the online store, revitalist.com/shop, to where they can find supplements, they can book online consults, my books there, just different things. Mhm.
Next time we get together, I want to dig deep into your book. And can I get vitamin C in
I
your
know,
shop?
huh?
In your shop,
Yeah.
is it there?
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, you can no, you can get the mushroom supplements. You can get functional mushrooms. You need to, if you want to get some supplements that really, really help, Lion's Brain is the way to go. That's their proprietary product, and it is online. But it's amazing. If you're looking for energy and focus and clarity, it's so good. Like, we've been able to get a lot of people off of their medications using it, but even people just in general who just want a good supplement to be on. Lion's Brain's beautiful. Yeah. But for vitamin C, biggest thing there, people want to get vitamin C, especially IV. It's like, just email us. And yeah, so corporate@revitalist.com. We get people a lot of times that like to say, is this place good? What do you think about this provider? And we're fine to give, kind of an unbiased, objective opinion based on those things, but they can always email us no matter where
Awesome.
they're at.
Katie, thanks for today.
Yeah. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Learned so much and very much so looking forward next time we get a chance to get together.
All right. Sounds good,
Appreciate
Steve.
it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.